My voice wasn't loud enough? Oh, okay. Couldn't hear us out there in the hinterland of Zoom world. Sheila? Call the meeting to order and welcome everybody. And I will ask first if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Seeing none. If it does arise, it can be declared. Sheila, can you give us an update on how people can join in virtually? Please.
Through you, Mayor Eccles, before I begin, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter meeting ID 891-5626-2480. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being held in 2 locations, on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Both members of staff and council have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Members of council and staff will be raising their hands to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance at any point during this meeting, you can send a chat message to me, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you.
Thank you, Sheila. And this meeting is dealing with zoning amendment number ZA 09.2023, part of Division 2 and 3, or Lot 24, Concession 1, east of the Garifrax Road, Plan 16M-27, Tiffany Development Corporation, Bruce. Declare the public meeting open. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting is required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect of the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Further, if a person or a public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And that is my part of it. Mr. Clerk, comments? Do you have some?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed persons and bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on April 25th, 2023. The comments that were received before the publishing of the agenda have been attached to the agenda. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Eckensweiler. And I'm going to turn it over now to Manager of Planning and Development, Ms. Spencer. Your comments, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This application is directly tied to the request for a red line revision to the approved plan of subdivision 01 on that subject lands. The applicant, through their agent, has requested that the red line revision be accommodated for future development density on the subject lands beyond that was provided through draft plan approval. To accommodate the red line revision, this zoning bylaw amendment will provide some relief to the provisions of the R2 and R3 zones. The red line revision will be approved by the County of Grey as the authority for plans of subdivision. A copy of the revisions to the red line revisions contemplated to the approved draft plan of subdivision are noted on the sketch as shown on the screen here for everyone's perusal and in the agenda documents. Furthermore, in the next slide, there is the draft zoning bylaw schedule, which dictates where those provisions and associated relief are contemplated for the property at this time. Planning staff have received comments from the County of Grey in support of the application. Comments were provided by the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, who requested that those specific provisions within the environmental impact study be implemented as part of the development of this proposal, despite the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. Furthermore, the applicant has been provided with comments from Hydro One requesting some confirmation with respect to the intended capacity for the development of the Plana subdivision in the current new density proposed. No further comments from the public were received in written format in support or in opposition to this application. Planning staff will further note that this application will not be brought forward for first, second, or third reading until such time as the red line revision has been approved by the county. I'm happy to provide further clarification as required. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura Lee. And at this point in time, I will ask if there's any comments from the public, starting with online. Sheila, do we have anybody that's online? Okay. Go to the public. Oh, do you have somebody there, Sheila? Okay, we didn't quite get to you quick enough. Marion, I'm sorry. Good. Please, go ahead.
It's Kristen Rennie. I'm the planner for the applicant. I do have a presentation that I sent to the municipality. I can just run through it quickly as to what we're requesting in terms of our zoning amendment. There we go. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Kristen Rennie. I'm a registered professional planner with Georgian Planning Solutions, and I'm the agent acting on behalf of the property owner. Next slide, please. As mentioned before, the purpose of the public meeting this evening, or it's not this evening, it feels like a long day. This afternoon is a zoning bylaw amendment to implement changes to an approved plan of subdivision 42T 2020-01 and to recognize changes in unit types within the development. Next slide, please. As mentioned in the notice, the property is located in Durham. It's part lot 24, concession 1 on Durham Road East. Next slide, please. Proposed changes. So the existing approval currently includes 118 single detached dwellings, 5 blocks of townhouses, which range in number from 49 to 87 units in total, depending on how they're built out, 1 stormwater management facility, and a parkland block. The proposed changes would result in 72 single detached dwellings, adding 28 semi-detached dwellings and additional townhouses, which would be increased to 10 blocks. And the number of units would change from 87 to 125 units. So a total of 20 additional units within the development. Next slide, please. So in regards to the zoning bylaw, the units are the areas that are in colored are the ones that are being amended. And so just to start with the darker sort of orange color in there in that longer sort of block. Currently, they are zoned R2-432, which allow for singles. We're requesting a change to R3-4, exception 434, which would be townhouses. The sort of peach color, it's like that smaller little block that's to the left of the site. They're currently zoned as well for singles, R2-433, and we're requesting it to be changed to R3-434, which would also be townhouses. The yellow areas that are identified are currently zoned R2 with exceptions, and the request is to rezone them to R2-486 to allow for semi-detaches. Just outside of like the 2 peach color ones and the orange color ones, those exceptions are consistent with the lands within the development, so there's no change in terms of setbacks or any of those items that aren't consistent with those, or that are consistent with those other blocks. So it's consistent with what's currently approved on those other blocks. Next slide, please. I think. Yes, there we go. For the semi-detaches, because we didn't have any semi-detaches in the first or in the approval, Yeah, the exception is R2286, and just to show you what we're asking for in terms of site-specific changes, minimum front yard from 7.6 meters to actually to 6. So there's a typo there. That should be 6 meters. We're trying to be consistent with the approvals that are currently on the property. The minimum interior side yard currently has a range between 1.2 meters and 1.8 meters. We're requesting 1.2 meters. The exterior side yard is 7.6 meters. We'd like to reduce that to 4.5 meters. And the rear yard setback from 7.6 meters to 6.0 meters. Now, those changes, again, are consistent with what's currently approved within the subdivision. So we didn't want to really change anything outside of what's already there. It's just the unit type. It's a semi-detached instead of a single detached. And I think that's my last slide. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of them.
Councillor Noon, Joyce?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I would think that an additional 20 units won't impact the water sewer infrastructure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. We did include as part of our submission a letter from our engineer that did articulate that there would be no change based on the number of units that we're proposing.
Okay. Any other questions? You can stay with us until we get through all. Thanks, Kristen. If there's no further questions at this point in time, any further online? Sheila? Questions from the public that are in the audience? Ms. Ratcliffe? If I could just have you state your name for the record, Marion, please.
That's my life. So it's Marion Ratcliffe. So the changes proposed by the developers for the Bruce subdivision will increase the number of dwellings. More homes equals more exterior lighting on the homes. And since I have no assurances that the developer will be using dark sky approved fixtures on the buildings, I will repeat my request that they do, especially considering the increase of potential of light pollution from this increased number of homes. And at this time, I will also ask about the street lights. I've been given to believe that the developers are using the same lighting company, Cree Lighting, and at the same lighting type as in the Sunvale project, but no confirmation. And while yes, the Sunvale lights do meet the minimum requirements for dark sky lighting, they have a CCT of 3000 K. I have looked, and Cree Lighting also offers a CCT of 2700 K in that same lighting style. So if Bruce would consider that in their lighting choice for their street lights as well, I would appreciate that. That's the, again, just working on light pollution with the increased number. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that, Madam Planner?
Thank you, Mr. Bear. I definitely will take it into consideration. I know that the engineer is online, but we haven't really had a chance to talk about that. But if he wanted to jump in, he's more than welcome to. Otherwise, we would definitely take it into consideration. I know there are existing standards within your municipality that we would adhere to, and think that you're working towards some dark sky changes, but I don't think that we've seen anything to this date. But I do see that Travis just turned on his camera, so I'll pass it over to him.
Sorry, yeah, we will work with municipal staff with regards to the approved guidelines that the municipality has set forth during the detailed design portion of this project.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Travis. Okay. Thank you, Marion. Sir. Yeah, please. Your mic. Yep. Thank
Should
you,
know
Chris.
better, being a musician. Chris Palmer. I just wanted to follow up on what Marion said. There's been a lot of effort made, generally speaking, with an increase, I would say it's fair to say, in the number of subdivisions that are coming to the area to ensure that dark sky compliant lighting is taken into account and is seen to be an important factor. I don't think anyone needs me to go on about how, well documented the preservation of night sky is, for all the reasons that have been researched and said. I do know, Kristen, we've actually talked in the past about this issue, and I will paraphrase a little bit, but since you mentioned the current engineering standards here in West Grey, I know that they are sadly lacking, so they need to be brought up to date. Technically speaking, I suppose any projects that are going ahead right now need only meet the standards that are in place here. We're hopeful that there's going to be some improvements in the near future. So I guess there's nothing stopping anyone from doing better. And I think, we all need to put our minds towards that. I mean, in speaking with all the interested parties, it struck me that we all seem to be on the same page. I mean, when I was involved with this, because I did craft the correspondence that went to staff and was presented, that's led to the proclamation on dark sky. I spoke with the developers, I spoke with council, a lot of people in the community. Everybody seems to be in agreement that we should improve the standards, and we should have a policy in place in terms of dark sky preservation. We lag behind a number of jurisdictions to the north of us who have quite well thought out and effective dark sky protection and bylaws, actually. So I guess what we're saying, or I'm saying to you today, Kristen, and as far as the Bruce project and specifically, is here's an opportunity to go beyond the minimum. We all seem to be interested in doing that. So I guess I'm just wanting to hear what's stopping us. And those are my comments. Can I get an assurance that, I guess the comment you've made and the engineering staff member made are a little weak in terms of any commitment to that. Probably you're not in a position to speak to it categorically, but I guess time will tell, but it would be nice to get a little more of a positive sort of concrete message from the people who are doing this development that they're going to really make that a priority, dark sky protection. Thanks. And feel free to comment again if you want or answer anything I've said.
Very good. Thank you. Kristen or Travis? Anything further you would like to speak?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't make decisions on that myself. Travis and I are just the consultants, but we can definitely let the property owner know and have that discussion with the staff, your staff.
Thank you.
Follow up. I did speak directly with Walter Bruce as well on this, and once again, he seemed to get it and be interested in doing more than the minimum. And he did, the impression I had, and I don't want to speak for him, but that there was concern around exceeding the current standards here in West Grey, because it potentially could lead to more delays with the project. So, I think that's really unfortunate that we've got a situation where someone is actually willing to do something, but because of the fact that the standards have not been upgraded for so long, they feel, and there have been delays already, they just feel that it's risky to exceed them because that could lead to further delays with the project. So that's
Points well taken. Thank you very much for your comments and points well taken, sir.
You're welcome, and thanks for all this meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could sign the sheet there too, Chris. All right. Any comments from anyone else in the audience? One, two. Certainly, sir. You have an opportunity there. Just wait for a second for Chris. Kazoo night down there. Welcome today, and if you could state your name and sign.
Don Trumbull, Durham, owner of Can Do Homes. I think the red line's very positive. It gives us a chance to do more attainable homes, an opportunity for young families to afford a semi or a townhouse that they probably wouldn't have been able to afford to buy a single. And it also for West Gray, as it creates permit development charges and a tax dollar that is, we see every year, is desperately needed. So I think it's a very positive that that we're doing more attainable lots and housing in the area, and I think it's going to be a lot more of this in the future. So I think it's for Walter to go ahead and spend the money to achieve this, I think shows a lot for the developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Anyone further in the audience? Any council members have any questions at this time about this project? Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, I agree. I think anything we can do to create more housing and particularly to get the pricing down so that people can get their foot in the door, I think is positive. My only question, and maybe this isn't, I'm just going to bring it forward now, but I believe the time to discuss it will be further down the line when we get into some details. But I'd really like to see us put in more trees in our developments when we're letting them. I know I've been in a number of subdivisions, a few in Guelph just recently, and where they have trees all along that are lined up that was obviously put in either by the municipality or by the city or by the developer when they built. And I know some areas it would be restrictive because of the number of homes, but I think if we can incorporate more trees into our subdivisions, I think that would be beneficial considering climate change and so on. So just like to bring that forward and we can maybe discuss that further at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Just in one instance, I see that we've got two open spaces. I know the red line revision is dedicated to the R3s and whatnot. Just for my own information, the front open space, what is that, Blueberry Lane? Corner of Blueberry Lane and Jackson Street is what it's proposed. That's stormwater management? Is that a stormwater?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's stormwater. That's the stormwater block, yes.
Correct. Quite a sizable portion there that's not usable, but anyways, and then there's another piece back in the back corner. Is that for parkland dedication?
It is, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Knowing the properties that are up there, I guess my question is going to be, what would it take, if we're looking at a better use of space, because in the subdivision straight to the west, there's a number of There's some open spaces there already that's parkland. How much do we need? I mean, we've got that statement that there's parkland dedication to every portion and or I think the term is cash in lieu. Would there be a consideration to offer an idea of what cash in lieu instead of parkland space would be? Just for the fact that the municipality has, in my own mind, an excess of parkland space right now and better usage of land. I understand why it's, through the policy kind of why it's there, but there's not an absolute that it needs to be there. Could that be looked at, Ms. Renee?
Yes, definitely. And in fact, our first submission was offering cash in lieu instead of parkland. So that area was utilized for, I think, single detached dwellings at that point. And then at the request of the previous council, we were asked to prepare a plan that had parkland dedication within the subdivision. So also we had argued that we were in close proximity to the Conservation Authority lands as well, which would be utilized by this neighborhood. So I'm sure that my client would be willing to have a look at that to see what the opportunities would be from a residential perspective.
Excellent. As I said, it goes with the proposed provincial planning statement that's coming out sometime in June about better usage of lands and whatnot. And if we could use some of that land to intensify, I think we're following along with that. To that point, it leaves more houses, a bit more light that would need to be onto that. But if we have Mr. Bruce online to deal with that, and it is very good, I can't see a problem from council's perspective on exceeding our expectations or even exceeding Mr. Palmer or Ms. Ratcliffe's expectations as well too, working with some experts in that field. So going forward, we'll work with that. Anything further? Councillor Hutchison, Doug?
Yeah, I definitely think we'll have further discussion about the parkland, but I think we as a municipal council maybe missed the boat and when we didn't pave the shoulders on Durham Road East heading to the conservation area, because if we don't have parkland, everybody's going to be heading to the conservation area to get their parkland use in. So we didn't pave them at the time we did the road. I thought that would have been a good idea, but anyways, that's another point for discussion. I just had another question about the exception 484. Maybe our planners can verify that. It talks about it will permit a minimum front yard setback of 7.45 meters, whereas 7.6 meters is required. I guess it's the side yard, and a minimum interior side yard setback of 0.49 meters, whereas 1.2 meters is required. So is that the space between the buildings, like half a meter? You'd have a hard time getting your lawnmower past the building if that's the side setback on the side, 0.49 meters. I'm just wondering, is that the way that reads, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually we're requesting a minimum side yard of 1.2 meters.
Well, that's not the way this reads. It says, in addition to a minimum interior side yard setback of 4.9. Oh, sorry, you're on the wrong one. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. I'm in the wrong one, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'm one ahead. Sorry. Flip too far forward. My mistake.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Doug. Anything further, Jeff? Councillor Shea.
Thank you. I was on the council that encouraged the inclusion of the parkland as opposed to the cash equivalent. There were concerns there was the argument made about the conservation area being right there, although way down the street. I mean, technically it's right there, but there's no access to it. So I'm not certain that I would like to see giving up the parkland in this densely populated new corner of Durham. But I do think it's interesting, chairman or mayor of this committee? Kevin. Okay. Of connecting the request for dark sky and parkland. I think it's a very political thing to do. And that's the business that we're in. So if we were going to see some improvements to in going beyond the minimum on dark sky, then maybe we could be having these discussions jointly. Just some interesting points I thought you brought up.
Any other questions from council? We'll go back and take another one from the audience. Mr. Trimble.
Just on that park thing. As a developer, builder, and a resident of West Gray, we get this park dedication land and it sits there. So when we have a subdivision, there's in the Sunville site, there's actually an area there. We could actually take the money from the other one and do what they call a real park. Having all these chunks of land that if they're not maintained, what advantage is it? Like, we have a hard time now with the parks in town. So there is a lot of people up there. Sidewalks and roads that would connect the two subdivisions together. I think it'd be great. It'd be great if Walter would come and say, I'll do this, but I want the stuff to actually be put into a park, not into a fund. That's just my comment as a developer. Right? Every time I develop a lot or do something, I pay this money, and I don't really know what parks it's going into or the raw land. If it just sits there as weeds grow on it, what advantage is it to the citizens of West Gray? So we need to, I think, have a policy if there's certain areas that there is a park required, not just a dedication of the land, actually have to do a park. So there is a lot of kids up there, and it is nice. They wouldn't have to go to the conservation, walk down the sidewalk right into the next park. So that's just a comment as a builder, a residents of West Gray. Thank you for your time again.
Okay, thank you. Oh boy, now we've got into something. What did I start? Scott, planner from county. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council for letting me address you today. Further to Councillor Shea's comments and some of the comments we heard from Ms. Rennie and Mr. Trumbull here. I worked on this file when it came through the first time for draft approval through county council and the zoning approval through West Gray Council. And one of the comments at that time was that if we are building more dense communities and people have less privately owned space, we do need potentially quality open space or parkland space for these residents, whether they be young or more seasoned, to enjoy. And between Sunvale and yes, there is a small piece of parkland in Sunvale and this Bruce development, it's potentially a significant new addition to Durham with lots of houses and potential people using those lands. And so as Kristen said, originally this proposal came in with no parkland and they were proposing cash in lieu. I think myself and some others, put the question back to them and we had that discussion with West Gray Council as to whether or not parkland should be included here because especially for very young people or people with mobility issues, it might not be easy to get down to those Conservation Authority lands. And I think with further density being added to this subdivision, certainly I'm very cognizant of the fact that it's not the county owning and maintaining these parklands. But I think there is a real place as we build out our communities and as we look at more intensive forms of housing for strategically placing this parkland and activating it as needed. And so just throw that in for council's consideration as we talk about this application going forward.
Thank you, Scott. Doug, Councillor Hutchison.
Right. If we go back to when this plan first come forward to council, the original parkland dedication was in the west side of the subdivision, between that and the Sunvale subdivision. And at that time, I believe the Bruce development was promoting a natural park area where he was going to put in logs and stones and whatnot, make it a real natural trail park type thing. but we opted to not go with that, and then we moved it over to the east side. So like I was in favor of the one on the west, thinking that that would be a great spot for it, because then now you're close to both subdivisions, but also because of the style of what he was promoting. Whereas the problem with the parkland, like Mr. Tremble said, you have parkland and if it's an open space, but who's putting in what in that space? Like, are we putting in the slides and the playgrounds or the boulders or whatever they're gonna play on? So it becomes an issue of how that gets built out, first of all, and then maintained is always an issue. So yeah, just to let people know, council know, that the parkland was on the left-hand side, right near the border on the west side, and that got changed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Any other questions or comments? Marianne, please.
I just want to voice my support also for maintaining the parkland. I quite frankly don't think you can ever have too much, ever. Open spaces are a good place. And as far as, yeah, you do need to do something with that land to make it usable, whether, you know, putting in, whether it's rocks or whether it's slides or whatever. And the thing you got to think of is they want to put in townhouses and semis, they want to bring in young families, and that's going to mean the littles. And heading down to the conservation area, probably not a great idea. I think the moms would probably rather have something close to home for them to take their kids where they can keep a good line of sight on them as well. As for the location, I don't know where the parklands are for the others. Especially when you've got this kind of something to think of in the future, where you're having add-on developments, is there a way to join up the parklands so that you actually have maybe a little bit of a bigger space where kids can actually kick a ball around, even if you haven't put soccer posts in, you know, for the littles, if there's somewhere where they, you know, big enough for them to kick the ball around or throw a baseball without being too close to the neighboring windows. So that's just a thought for the future. Anyways, but definitely, yes, please do keep the parkland and do something more than just weeds. Make it something useful for the kids.
Chris?
I agree with Councillor Hutchinson. I'm not aware of all the details of the west portion that was originally in this development, but it sounds like it was a good idea. I guess I'd like to speak in favor of weeds. Surprise. And we really, Mr. Trumbull, we have to get away from this notion, and I've heard it from many folks, that if we're not, and by we, I mean humans, developing or utilizing or doing something in a portion of land that somehow it's not being used, that's an incorrect way to think, in my opinion. The reason that you want to have that element, I can sum it up in one word, and it's biodiversity. Something we all need more of, not less of. So I hope that whatever decision is made, that a lot of weight is given to that. I mean, yes, people need places to live. Yes, people are coming up to the area. There's no point in pretending it's not going to happen, but we need to be smart about it. We can have, that's why dark sky struck me as and I hate this term, but I'm going to use it anyway, a win-win. It was something we can do on the environment where people can still have what they need, but we can do it in a smart way. It's not a question of one or the other. People don't have to stumble around in the dark, right? We've got the technology. So, but I just wanted to comment on that because I think that's a really important point and I appreciate, when you come from the developer world, that's your thing and all that. So I understand that, I don't think we need to I'd like to, I hope we can kind of bridge all this stuff and see where we've got common ground, that's so important. Maybe if more development happened up there on the hill, maybe the Crawford thing isn't necessary. That's my.
Any other questions or comments? The more parkland that you have, less houses you have in a certain area, that the next area is going to take them. And the more property that's covered in by streets and roads to get to those houses as well, too. I agree with you, biodiversity. And a weed's only a plant that somebody doesn't want to be there. But the idea of density is that we're not getting a creep and jumping over properties and whatnot that are left to decay. We can keep intensity, then we could keep a lot more land open spaces as well, too. Arguments both ways. Okay, any other questions or comments? I think there's been a few. I think Ms. Renee and Ms. Burnside have heard a few things, and then maybe going back to talk to Mr. Bruce. And any further last comments, Ms. Spencer?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. All right. Any further comments from council? I thought you were at your quota already. Go ahead, Doug.
Well,
Councillor
just in
Hutchison.
case we don't get the opportunity to comment again on this whole natural space thing, I'm just thinking, what would be the opportunity, and I'll let the planners think about this, the opportunity to go back to where there was some property on the west side and it's maybe behind some housings that's there. So I'm not saying you have to take out those housing, but maybe you shorten their backyard and bring a trail all along the back of the properties to the north and then into the block part 125 or parkland that's there now, decrease the size of that. So then now you have a natural area with a natural trail that goes along a bush at the back to the north into a small area. And then you can use some of that parkland to the east for housing, cut it down. And I just think a natural trail with, maybe a paved trail, but then you've got bush and you've got natural areas and you've got some places where you can stop and maybe have a little play area and then you move on. So I think I've spent a lot of time walking on trails and looking at trails, and the more natural it can be, the better, and then you've got an area right in there that you've got some distance. You've got some, like I say, natural areas. And I think it'd be a great opportunity, but again, that's something the planners would have to look at and the development would have to be in favor of. But, and then it's right next to Sunvale. So maybe Sunvale would want to move their little area that they have to the northwest and just add a few chunks onto this one. And so now you have a bigger area on the west side. So just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the comments. Christina.
Thank you, Mr. I just want to thank you for the discussion in regards to the open space. Moving forward, we really would like to be able to deal with the zoning bylaw amendment that was requested as part of this, and we'll definitely take into consideration the comments related to the open space, but would probably deal with that under a different application if you see that as a fit way to move forward. That's how we would like to move forward.
I was thinking that that's the way it would be, is under another red line revision this to another phase in the project as it moves along. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Any further comments from council? Then I shall declare this public meeting closed at 2:45. You got that? Excellent. Okay. Now, we do have one other. Second public meeting today is for zoning amendment 16-2023 JT Excavating Limited. Cobite Engineering is on this one as well. So we're down to this. I'll declare this meeting open. And at 2:46. And Sheila, if you can give us the instructions on this one, please.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Before again, if you get disconnected, you dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter ID 895626240. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being held in 2 locations on Zoom as well as being streamed on YouTube. Both members of council have been briefed on the Zoom meeting software. Members raising their hands to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance at any point during the meeting, you can send a chat message to me, Sheila Ferguson, coordinator, and I'll attend to you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends the statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Thank you. And further, Mr. Clerk, Mr. Eccles-Wyatt.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed persons and bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on April 25th, 2023. The comments that were received before the publishing of the agenda have been attached to the agenda. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. Comments from Ms. Spencer, Manager of Planning and Development. Marley?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this application is to change the zone symbols on the subject lands from R1B residential to R1B with exception 484 and R2 485 residential with exception on the subject lands, the effect of which will permit the construction of a semi-detached dwelling unit on a newly created parcel resulting from file B11, 2023, recognize the deficient frontages of the newly created lot and recognize the existing deficient front yard and interior side yard setbacks of the existing single detached dwelling unit. Exception 484 will permit a minimum front yard setback of 7.45 meters, whereas 7.6 meters is required, in addition to a minimum interior side yard setback of 0.49 meters, whereas 1.2 meters is required for the existing single detached dwelling unit on the subject lands. Exception 485 will recognize the deficient lot frontage of the newly created lot of 8.59 meters. Comments in favor of the applications have been provided by the County of Grey, in addition to the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. No comments from the public in favor or in opposition of the application have been provided at this time. As you can see, the schedule contemplated for the zoning bylaw amendment is on the screen before you and also available in the agenda package. I'm happy to provide any further clarification as required. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Sheila, do we have anyone online? at this point in time. I'm not certain it's a member of the public, but it might be a planner from Kobike by the looks of it. Ms. Kiefer. Dana, do you want to give comments?
Yeah, good afternoon, council. It's just us here again. We were here 2 weeks ago to facilitate the severance for the property. What we're doing now is setting up that property to be able to build the semi-detached on the proposed severed and then recognize some existing setbacks from that house. Happy to answer any questions that council has, and thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dana. Is there anyone else online you see, Sheila, that for comments? No one? Anyone in the audience have comments at this point in time? Wow. Council members. Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
All right, maybe now I'm on the right file. Maybe someone can explain whether the planner or Ms. Tremble about the interior side yard setback of 0.49 meters. I'm not exactly sure whether that's where that is. Can they explain that maybe?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that if that's okay.
Please, Dana. Yes.
Councillor Hutchison, that is actually the existing house setback to the house that is there today. So that is from the existing house to the lot line to the north.
Okay, so then how much room will there be from the existing lot line? Oh, you said to the north. Okay, to the north, not to the south where the severance is taking place. Right. Okay. All right. I get that. Thank you.
Good. Good clarification. Anything else? Any other questions? This is it. Going once, twice. All right, I will declare this public meeting closed at 2:53. Thank you very much.